We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday. We had a hell of a Monday. And because it was so taxing and so tiring, and I'm old, uh, I decided to bring in some help today. And the help today is somebody you're familiar with, Eric from Iowa. Eric, thanks for joining us and bailing me out here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, well, we had so much stuff to talk about. There's so many things going on that I thought it'd be better bouncing things back and forth. I want to bring up one thing though, and just get your input on it because I had people ask me about this and say, please say something about this. I did a TikTok about it. We've got tax time coming up, suckiest time of the year. Everybody hates tax time. And if you remember last year, everybody's going, holy shit, why are my taxes so high? And I'm just here to tell you that this time around it's going to be much the same. And you need to understand why the taxes are in the situation they are right now. The reason they're so high, the Republicans would like you to believe that it's Joe Biden. But what you have to understand is Joe Biden tried to pass some tax laws, was unable to because the Republicans do what they do and try to obstruct everything Joe Biden did. So he couldn't help the middle class at all. The reason taxes are so high is because of Donald Trump and Republicans. You remember Donald Trump ranting and raving about how he had the highest tax cut in history, which was a lie in the first place. It wasn't the biggest tax cut, but you have to understand how that works. $2 trillion in perpetuity to wealthy people. They get it forever. Gave middle class some crumbs, but that had an end date, and that end date is already passed. And then after that end date, every couple of years, our taxes go up in order to pay for those $2 trillion that he gave away to the rich people. So as you're doing your taxes and you're looking at what the fuck's going on and you owe more than you think you should, don't blame Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and the Republican Party. Donald Trump put it in motion, and Joe Biden tried to help, and the Republicans blocked him at every turn. So what that means, kick those motherfucking Republicans out in November, or your taxes are going to continue to go up.
See, I've been thinking about this, and I think the Republicans did it on purpose. I
Oh, I do
think when they
too.
passed their 2017 tax bill, they put it in place to die and have our taxes go down or go back up after the election as a fallback, just in case Donald Trump didn't win or they were out of power, and they could say, "See,
Right,
Democrats are raising your taxes," because they know most people do not follow politics as close as you or I.
right.
All they look at is go, "Oh man, I'm paying more taxes. There's a Democrat in power. Oh, it's got to be his fault," and they don't look past that.
No. And I think a lot of people are doing that. That's why I've had people come to me, say something on TikTok and say something on the podcast, because, all so often people just look at the headlines. My taxes are going up. It's 2024. Biden's the president. Must be his fault. And it's not his fault. If the Republicans allowed him to do what he wanted to do, we would all be in a much better position. But we know Republicans don't want us to be in a better position, certainly not to make Joe Biden look good.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, they don't want to do any take any win, even if it's a win for them. If it could possibly give Joe Biden a win, they will shoot themselves in the foot figuratively and maybe literally every single time.
Well, and they are doing that. They are doing that with the border bill that they didn't pass, even though this is so important to them. Um, I wanted to start out talking about something. First TikTok I did yesterday, because I found it so hilarious. Donald Trump, this whole Roe v. Wade situation, I think that is the death knell to the Republican Party. That's the big thing that's going to cost them the election. It just affects too many people, and too many people are against what they want, and they just keep doubling down and tripling down. So Donald Trump has been getting pressured to give his stance on Roe v. Wade and abortion and such. Now, I don't know what more we have to find out because he embraced Roe v. Wade and said, I did that. I'm responsible for that. So if you want to wonder who's responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, Donald Trump owns that outright. But then he had to come to terms and make a statement. What's his stance on abortion? I thought he just wouldn't say, and that's kind of what happened. He's got a problem if he says he wants a national abortion ban, then 70% of the country hates his fucking guts. If he says he wants a 15-week or 16-week abortion ban, then the evangelicals will hate his guts. No matter what he did, they weren't going to like him. So what's he do? He does what Donald Trump does. He fucking hedges. He said, well, I just think the state should handle it. That doesn't put the pro-lifers in his pocket, and the evangelicals are now getting pissed off because they want a full-out ban. Donald Trump hedged. He couldn't make the right choice, but he made the perfect wrong choice because he pissed off both sides.
That sounds like typical Donald Trump. He's doing anything he can to appeal to anybody, and he's in turn appealing to nobody. I
Right.
mean, he came out and said, "Well, the state should deal with it, but I'm against it." But didn't he pay for a couple himself
Yeah,
for
I'm
one
sure
of
he
his
did.
mistresses? But he says he's against it, yet he won't say he's for a national ban. Like I don't know. There's no way he can take a stance on that without pissing off somebody. But your best bet in this situation is to do what Joe Biden is doing and side with the 70% of Americans that want to protect Roe v. Wade.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that what democracy is about? Majority rules. And Joe Biden's representing the majority. That's what he's supposed to do.
You would think, but as I've said numerous times on this podcast, the religious right in this country believes, and they are told from very, very young, especially when it comes to the abortion issue, that they are the silent majority in this country. They are told and indoctrinated from a young age that they are on the side of right and that most people side with them, and anything you hear to the contrary is wrong.
Yeah.
Why?
It's kind of like those people that have a favorite football team and say that God is on their side. I don't think God cares about the NFL. And the thing about the abortion issue, I don't think Donald Trump cares either way about that issue or any other issue. You got to understand how Donald Trump thinks. It's all about his own benefits. So Donald Trump will say whatever he feels he can say that's going to benefit him with fundraising or votes and all that sort of stuff. He didn't give a fuck about abortion issue. That's not important to
No,
him.
not really. No, he's like a lot of these Trump fucks and Republicans who, just like Old Soul's current
Yeah.
person she's helping, family was firmly against it till it was in their own family and they had to deal with it, and then suddenly it was an issue, and
Yeah.
it was acceptable.
Yeah, that's a problem I have with the evangelicals and the hard right religious people. They're definitely against something unless it affects them, so they're hypocritical and they believe that anything's on the table as long as it is for their greater good. Meaning they'll let Donald Trump cheat, steal, commit adultery, do whatever as long as he bans abortion. And I firmly believe that's all they cared about with Donald Trump. So now Donald Trump comes out, doesn't tell them what he wants to hear. He's going to have a problem with the evangelicals and such because he didn't give the right answer.
He's going to have some trouble, but the problem is, it's like you said with the Middle East and Joe Biden. The people that are against what's going on in the Middle East looking at Joe Biden and saying, "Well, Donald Trump's the better candidate," when he's not.
No,
The people that are so against abortion, even if no matter what Donald Trump says, they're not going to look at Joe Biden and go, "Well, he's our guy." They're not going to vote for Joe Biden. They may not vote. They may vote third party, but they won't vote for Joe Biden.
right. But the whole Israeli Hamas thing is always confusing to me. People don't like what they're I don't think there's as many people as they try to make out to be, but they'll say that people don't like Joe Biden for his stance on Israel. There are Muslims, there are people from Gaza, that whole group of people that are upset with Joe Biden. Well, what did Donald Trump say he would do if he was president? He basically said he would give Israel full reign to do whatever the fuck they want and bomb the shit out of the place. So you Muslims
Exactly.
and you progressive left people that like don't like Joe Biden. Is Donald Trump your best alternative? If he is, you're not fucking paying attention.
Exactly. No, what they're probably going to do is try to vote third party. And I saw a graphic, and I don't remember all of the things, but um, how many votes he got. But Ross Perot in the '92 election, if you took most or all of his votes in a bunch of the states and shifted them to George W. Bush, it cost George H.W. Bush the election.
Yeah,
Ross Perot wasn't he didn't win a single electoral vote, but he got us President Clinton
yeah.
because he played spoiler. And that's all voting for a third party. I don't care if you're on the right or the left is going to do is your vote is going to hurt whichever is your candidate or whoever is closest to your candidate.
Well, people are worried about it in this election. I'm not so much. First of all, nobody previously and nobody since has done what uh, Ross Perot did. Ross Perot was kind of a fluke. He got a lot more, and he didn't get that much, but he got enough to impact the election. And actually, it's probably good that he did, and we got Bill Clinton in. But we also already heard from the no labels thing. Everybody said, "Oh, no labels. They're going to have a third party. That's going to give us trouble." And I explained at that point, well, that's well and good, but they don't even have a fucking candidate. So after some time and all the people going, oh my God, third party, no labels, they ended up quitting because they got no candidate. So we worried about that shit for no reason. And then there's RFK Jr. I refuse to believe that RFK Jr. is going to take away from the Democrats. He's an anti vaxxer. He's a QAnon fucking conspiracy theorist. He appeals more to the people voting Republican than he does Democrats. And I don't honestly believe that he'll be able to hold on. He had a horrible choice for vice president. It was just about money. And I don't think he has the wherewithal to make it between now and November because I think a lot of shit is going to come out about him.
You might be right. I don't know if he'll hold on. Um, I could see him peeling a few votes from Joe Biden on
Maybe.
name. And I'm talking when I say a few, I'm talking in the hundreds, maybe
Yeah.
nationwide,
Yeah.
because people recognize the name Kennedy. I mean, I don't think he's going to be a spoiler by any means. No, all the third parties, they're going to do almost all of them are going to hurt Donald Trump. He needs every vote he can get, and that's even if he's the nominee,
Right.
or
And
if he's he could be the nominee and he might not be in a position to win because he could be behind bars.
are you starting to see what I mean by him not maybe being the nominee about the things that might go down between now and November?
Oh, I've been agreeing with you the whole time. I
Okay,
just
great.
I don't think that he's going to make it. I mean, if he is the nominee, something could come up between here and there. Like he could be in a jail cell, and the Republicans could be left scrambling. They might have to run the Trump ticket, but come out and make a statement and say, well, whoever his vice president pick will take the oath of office as president, and we're just going to bypass Trump altogether. And it better be a damn good pick because whoever it is going to have to go up against Joe Biden in the general, and I don't think they can make it.
No, no, I don't think anybody will make it. I mean, the thing about it is people are worried about this third party thing. And let's just look at the facts. Joe Biden's got the majority of Democrats behind him. We've seen that in the primaries, 85, 95%. Donald Trump doesn't have unity and doesn't have full support in the Democratic Party. He just doesn't. Um, we've got the abortion issue. We've got the criminal trials, one starting here very shortly. I'm not worried about a third party because we've got a couple of issues. We've got Donald Trump losing a lot of Republicans. And frankly, if he's going to win anything, he needs all the Republicans and a lot of the independents. He's lost the independents. He doesn't have all the Republicans. No way he wins. The reason why I'm not worried about a third party is I think in 2020, people were scared to death and they came out in force. Joe Biden got 81 million votes. I think in 2024, they're even more afraid, and there's going to be a bigger voting mass coming out. It's going to be unprecedented again. And I think the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is going to be so vast, it'll look ridiculous to even suggest they cheated.
Yeah, and I think Joe Biden is going to flip a few more states blue
I do too.
this time around than last time, and it might be a one-term flip or a one cycle flip, just because Donald Trump or like I said, if he's in jail and they come out and say, well, his vice president pick is going to actually take the oath of office as president or whatever they do. Um, who they don't have anybody. Look at their depth, their roster. They don't have anybody that appeals on a national level as a Republican. Maybe Liz Cheney, maybe a
Yeah.
Mitt Romney, but even them, they have a hard time winning over the MAGA movement. They're not a unified voice. Whereas Democrats, look at how deep the Democrats are. If they needed to pull a candidate, you could potentially have a Kamala Harris. You could have Gavin Newsom. You could have,
Jamie
you know,
Raskin, whoever,
Jamie Raskin. Right? Yeah, they
Hakeem
have
Jeffries.
right. They have a roster of people who are nationally known and nationally liked
Right.
that could step in if they had to today and pull a candidate. Republicans don't have that.
No, that's why I don't even see the election for president as close, regardless of who they came up with. I hope, I say this and you say this that Donald Trump probably won't be the nominee, but don't get me wrong. I'm hoping and praying he is the nominee because that is the best option for Joe Biden. Not that he could get beat by anybody, but Donald Trump name and face and behavior is a fucking election killer, and it has been since after 2016. The best thing that can happen to the Democrats is Donald Trump is the nominee. I just don't think he's going to get there. There's too much hanging over his head.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like I said, I think it's entirely possible that he somehow still ends up the nominee, but the Republicans come out and say, well, it's too late for us to take him off the ballot, but his vice president will be, is who you're voting for or whatever. But at that point, it won't matter. If Trump's name's on the ballot, the presidential election's in the bag for Joe Biden, almost
Absolutely.
guaranteed. But even having Trump involved this late in the race, it's going to hurt Republicans down ballot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I
and
mean,
that's what I talked about before. The reason why the Republicans are holding on so tightly to Donald Trump, even though they know he can't win, because they're afraid that Donald Trump voters will just not come out at all. And then that really devastates the down ballot.
see, they're screwed either way here.
Yeah,
With Donald Trump, there is going, he's hurting the down ballots because he's siphoning out money. The donors aren't donating. He's stealing money out of the RNC. They can't protect those down ballot races financially to run ads and things like that and canvas and do all the things that you have to do to run a successful campaign. So the money's not there that way. But if he's not there, the Trump voters stay home, and those people still might lose.
well, and that's why I don't know why the media is not talking about this. I'm going to say this, and I challenge anybody to debate this with me. Donald Trump is the absolute worst candidate, worst position as a candidate in the history of presidential elections. And I'm talking from major parties. Never a Democrat or a Republican has been a worse candidate with more things going against him than Donald Trump. In addition to that, I think the Republican Party this time around is in its weakest condition any party has ever been. They don't have money. They don't have anything to campaign on. They already overturned Roe v. Wade. They've done nothing in the House. Uh, it's just, if you look at it standing back a little bit and don't get clouded with this Donald Trump stuff, Donald Trump and the party are the worst possible position a party and a candidate could ever be in. And that's going to show itself in November.
Well, I think it's like what you've said several times. They're setting up the prize fight.
Right.
You know, they have to have it be close, and they have to keep talking about, well, Donald Trump might win, and oh, the Republicans could retake the House and claim the Senate, and all the down ballot races are going to be so tight and everything. They have to. They're setting up the Republicans to be the boogeyman, because
Right.
if they came out and said what we're saying, and that Well, the facts are showing that there's no money for Republicans. They're not getting donations. They're looking weak. Either way, it's going to hurt them down ballot. The ratings aren't there if they come out and say that day after day after day,
Right.
because people they're not going to tune into the main news sources for that, which I think the news networks are wrong about. I think people would tune in for that. They
Right.
don't need to be scared and on edge every second of every day to tune into the news.
Right. Well, we know the media doesn't tell us the whole story. They tell us the story that's going to get them the most viewers. A perfect example of that. Well, let's just talk about this. You can talk about the polls all you want. I think the real number to look at in as far as support is how much money are they fundraising? Joe Biden fundraised twice as much as Donald Trump in the last quarter. The vast majority are people offering $200 or less. We're talking tens of thousands of supporters. And then Donald Trump comes out with this fake, and I'll say it's fake, I'll guarantee you it's fake, fundraiser where he broke the record. He claimed to get $50 million. Now, I said on TikTok, I said, look, this is interesting because Joe Biden had this big event with Barack Obama and Clinton, and he raised $25 million, unprecedented, and it was a world record for fundraising. You know that butt hurt Donald Trump. He doesn't like anybody to be more
Oh yeah.
popular than him or raise more money than him. So he has another fundraising event, and surprise of all surprises, he gets $50 million, exactly double what Joe Biden got. New record. Well,
Well,
like
I
a, and
heard a
and
few
the
things about that.
yeah, and the media reports it as, oh, he got $50 million. And my question is, where'd you get that number? Did you get it from accounting firm? Did you get it from election campaign officials? No, you got it from Donald Trump. He's been lying to you, bullshitting you, and committing fraud for 7 years, and you're going to take him at his word. That's ridiculous.
Well, one of the articles I read about that number said it wasn't all guaranteed. It wasn't all
No.
cash donations that day. It was IOUs and promises to donate at a future date should certain events happen. Like it was,
Yeah.
well, if you do this, I'll get you that. I'll donate down the road. Or if you can bring your poll numbers up to this, I'll donate down the road. And he counted all of that as guaranteed donations because in Donald Trump's mind, of course he's going to do whatever these things are. Doesn't matter. They could tell him, Donald Trump, I want you to walk on the moon without a spacesuit. And he'd say, sure enough, guaranteed I can do it, because
Yeah.
he believes it. He believes he's that good. And on top of that, I also read something that said they're looking into this thing because apparently it was a religious nonprofit group or something that put this fundraiser on, and that's in violation of campaign finance law.
Well, that wouldn't be surprising at all. The other thing to consider, this fundraising event, this big $50 million event, you know how many people went to that? 117 people. That means every one of them had to go into their pockets and pay $425,000. You really believe that happened? I don't think so.
I believe there's a better chance of me opening my front door and finding $425,000 cash sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll give you one scenario where I bet you all that stuff drops off, and it's real easy for rich people to say, I'll give you a bunch of money, and then come up with a reason not to do it. Donald Trump's done it a million times. Rich people do this all the time. Donald Trump is going into his first criminal trial on April 15th, a week from yesterday. If he gets a conviction, where do you think that money's going to go? It ain't going to Donald Trump. They're going to say, fuck it. Their sphincters are going to tighten, and so are their pocketbooks.
Oh yeah, almost all the big donors and the ones that haven't walked away yet will be done if he gets even one charge convicted on one charge out of 34 in an open and shut documents case where they don't bring the charges if they don't have the documents to back it up.
Right. Well, and the thing about it is we're 6 days away from it. And yesterday, Donald Trump, I told people, I said, this week is going to be especially squirrely for Donald Trump because he's not used to being held accountable. He's not used to not being able to delay or put something off or run the clock. but he's in that position now. He's done everything he can, and none of it's working. Even yesterday, he filed a motion to have a change of venue or delay it or whatever. I mean, it was a fucking Hail Mary pass. It was frivolous. It was stupid. And it was so stupid that the appellate judge came back within hours and said, yeah, nah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I read something on that. He wanted a change of venue out of Manhattan because he didn't think he could find 12 jurors that could impartially rule on this case because, in his words, everybody in Manhattan hates Donald Trump. And on top of it, he's trying to get away from the judge because he
Right.
thinks the judge, is so unfair and biased towards him. But I've asked this, where the hell does he think he's going to find 12 people
In New
that don't
York.
have an opinion one way or, well, anywhere, one way
Yeah.
or the other about Donald Trump?
Right.
He's
Right.
too well known, he's too famous, and he's done too much shit for him not to be held accountable and for people to not have an opinion about him. He's done this to himself.
Yeah. People have come to me and said, yeah, but what if a Trump humper gets on the jury and hangs the jury? Then what? I don't honestly think that's a big deal. First of all, it's in New York. The likelihood of that happening in New York is much less than, say, Alabama. But here's the thing, when they're hit with all this evidence and it's so obvious, the one guy or gal that tries to hang this jury, they're going to have a problem because they better have a good reason for it or they're going to get hung out to dry. And who wants to get hung out to dry with Donald Trump when they know he's going over the cliff? I don't see that happening. And even if they do hang the jury, that doesn't mean he's free and clear. They just start a new trial.
Well, exactly. And I mean, a lot of people get hung up on the idea of, them hanging the jury, or the idea from, like, what is it, 12 Good Men?
Yeah. 12
12
angry
Angry Men.
men.
Yeah. Where the one guy holds out and pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes. The amount of evidence in this case is going to be so overwhelming and so damning that even if that one juror, if there would be one, is either going to have to agree to it, or the other 11 are going to basically argue and argue and argue with him until they see the light of day,
Right.
and they give in just because they're tired of dealing with it. Like, I don't see even one Trump humper being able to hold out long enough to hang this jury. And on top of it, there is, part of it goes into jury selection.
Right.
You
Right.
know, if you got somebody who's overly biased toward Donald Trump, comes in wearing a red MAGA hat or something, that the
Oh,
state's attorneys are going to go, "You're out of here," and it's not even going to be a question. Like, uh, Judge Marchand is going to sit there and he's not going to he's going to be strict on who's going to be on this jury,
right.
and there's not going to be any chance for them to hang this thing.
Well, and here's something to remember too that I think a lot of people forgot. Remember back in Georgia when they had the grand jury and they were trying to determine whether to indict all these people, including Donald Trump. After it came out, the foreperson of the jury started talking. She was kind of a weird woman, but smart enough. But it was revealed that at least one or two Trump humpers were on that grand jury, and they didn't vote against indicting Donald Trump. They heard what they heard. You a little peer pressure. You're dealing with the law. You're dealing with, your own exposure for being corrupt, and you're risking your life for some clown who's obviously got evidence. But the grand jury, they all voted. All of them voted to indict. So even if there is a Trump humper on the case, I'm not I'm not really worried about it. Donald Trump's not getting away with anything. This is going to be a pretty damning situation.
Well, the other thing to consider too is when you sit on a jury, they swear you in. You swear under oath, like, before you answer all of your questions about you know your qualifications to sit on the jury and can you be impartial and all of that. You swear about all of that under penalty of perjury, I believe.
Yeah,
So if they lie about, well, no, I'm not a Trump humper, or, and I know that's not the question they're going to ask, but I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, and blah blah blah, and I can be impartial. and then they try to hold out and hold out and hold out and hang the jury on nothing more than they're a Donald Trump fan, they could be looking at charges themselves. And I
Right.
think that among anything is going to scare them straight.
And once they hear the evidence, uh, they're going to realize that this is a lost cause. Donald
Yeah.
Trump is a piece of shit. The evidence is there. I mean, we've got a lot of people in public, not listening to the show, but other people in the world that don't understand all the facts or to the degree that Donald Trump is corrupt and criminal. They're going to sit there all day, every day, listening to this, and it's going to be hard to deny it. Um, what's also going to be interesting too is Donald Trump is going to have to be sitting in that courtroom every day, all day, and keep his mouth shut. And I don't think he will. His behavior will have an impact on what the jury does.
As it's been said about a lot of people, Donald Trump might have the right to remain silent. He does not have the ability.
No,
He is
he
going
does
to
not.
sit there. He's going to try to make comments. He's going to mean mug. He's going to try to bully witnesses. And you know he's going to spout off. He might get held in contempt for a night or two. I mean, it is going to be bad. I even saw a comment on a TikTok that said, "Well, he'll just blow off showing up." No,
Can't.
he's not going to be able to just blow off showing up like he did in his civil case. If he's not there, the judge can issue a bench warrant for his arrest for contempt of court, and he goes to jail.
Right.
And that's not appealable. That's not reviewable. That's not delayable. There could be a warrant issued for his arrest day one of that trial because he wasn't sitting there in that courtroom, and the U.S. Marshals or whoever they turn it over to would go to Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster or wherever he's hiding, and potentially stuff him and cuff him
Right.
and haul him to jail.
Right. Exactly. And this criminal trial, like I say, it's going to be the beginning of the end for Donald Trump. Once he gets a conviction, he's pretty much done. I I said before, remember when we were waiting for the indictments? Who's going to do it first? And everybody was concerned about it. But then Alvin Bragg comes along and indicts the motherfucker. And then we had a waterfall of indictments thereafter because everybody was finally not going to be the first one. So Alvin Bragg, it seems, seems to be justice that he'll get the first conviction of Donald Trump. And then after that, shit is going to start falling badly for Donald Trump, not just in courts, but for money and all this type of stuff and votes and support. This is the end for Donald Trump. When he gets convicted, it's the start of the end, and there will be no turning back at that point.
No, you're right. And not only that, but I think once he gets convicted in this case, and I believe, no, I could be wrong, but I firmly believe he's going to get convicted of at least one, probably closer to 30 of all of the 34 charges. But he's going to get at least one conviction. I wonder how many of the his delay tactics in other cases are going to suddenly stop working and the judges are going to start ramping up once he's already been convicted and they know, well, a different court's already dealt with this. He's already been convicted, especially if there isn't any violence around the courthouse because Meal Team 6 and the Gravy Seals didn't show up to defend him.
Yeah,
The other judges are going to go, okay, it's game on. Let's ramp things up. Let's get going. And there's not going to be all of these delay tactics. They're just not going to continue to work.
absolutely not. And these people that are worried about a civil war and violence and all that stuff, I'm convinced none of that's going to happen because the scenario is much different. Joe Biden's the president, and he controls the National Guard, or the state controls the National Guard in New York. The one way to determine if we've got a civil war coming on Monday when they start jury selection. Let's see how many of those motherfuckers show up. They haven't shown up to the indictments. We'll see if they show up to the trial.
I would bet conservative guess at 25 to 50 tops.
Yeah, I tend to
And that's
agree.
probably top end. I mean, I'm probably stretching it there. But even so, if they try to show up with any sort of weaponry, I bet New York's finest are probably going to be on scene ready to handle them. So it won't be a big deal. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's going to be a civil war. I think it's a lot of smoke and talk and bluster, but I think when it push comes to shove, they're going to back down.
Yeah, I mean they already have. I mean, the only people that will show up will be the oddballs. These are the dumbest of the dumb. And they'll go out there and they'll do their stupid shit. They'll come in their little clown car and 20 of them will come out with MAGA hats and t-shirts on and they'll rant and rave and they'll be pretty much a joke. Cuz really the whole MAGA thing is dying as we speak and they're kind of a joke. You know, at one point people were fearful of them, but they've become literally a fucking joke. And I don't think you'll see a lot of people show up in New York for the start of the
No,
trial. They haven't
no,
shown
I
up for
don't
anything
either.
else.
I don't either. I mean, it's the MAGA movement by itself is proving to be untenable. I think a big chunk of it is the racist fucks that came out of the woodwork after Obama was president, and then um, some of them just chimed on to the MAGA thing because Donald Trump had name recognition outside of politics,
Right,
and they latched on to his stardom.
right.
But no, it's um, I don't see the MAGA movement lasting much longer. I think they're going to get their ass kicked probably yet maybe this term in Congress. If not, they're going to be the reason why the Democrats have control of the House in 2025 and forward.
Well, right. And once the Democrats have control of the House, and I think that's the easy one for them to get, when they have control in the House, MAGA is pretty much inconsequential. We're talking maybe 8 or 10 people after everybody else is no longer afraid of them in the Republican Party. They're going to die on the vine. And the people behind it are going to get upset because they've been able to manipulate the Republican Party for whatever reason, I don't know, but they certainly aren't going to do that to Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats. They're just going to get fucking laughed at.
Oh, exactly. I mean, did you hear about what the MAGA movement pushed for their big list of demands to fund the Baltimore Bridge?
What?
Let's see. I could be missing some stuff here. They wanted equivalent cuts to other programs to offset any spending for the bridge. They wanted all funds that could potentially be diverted from the uh, Build Back Better to be moved in to pay for this. Whatever's already been appropriated, they wanted moved. They wanted to hold the Singaporean company uh, and their insurance liable for as much money as they could get out of that because they should be held financially responsible. They should pay for it. Um, and there was something about I'm trying to remember. There was another demand in there about cutting funding for something else too.
Well, you know, there'd be an easy way to handle this. You can get it paid for very easily by pulling the billions of dollars of welfare to red states. They're worried about the money. Let's take the billions of dollars out of Alabama, out of Mississippi, out of Texas, out of all these red states because they get the most welfare anyway. Let's just cut them in half, take those billions and build the bridge.
Well, yeah, but you couldn't tell. But that's just it. I see it around here all the time. You tell people around here, they don't believe that we're at that. And I don't know if Iowa for sure is a taker state, but they don't believe the red states are the taker states. They're getting the government assistance, but they firmly believe, even though and you can't tell them otherwise, even though the
Yeah.
data shows it, they believe places like Chicago, LA, New York City, all of the blue states that have the population, that they're all the ones on the receiving side of welfare.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
The
anywhere
data
there's,
shows it's the other way around, but you can't tell them that they don't want to hear it.
yeah. And that's the problem. And that's why there is no point in arguing with these fucks because you can give them facts, but they can't comprehend it. You can give them truth and they can't grasp it. There is no point in negotiating or talking to somebody who's an idiot. And you know, it's not always nice to call somebody an idiot, but we've seen these Trump fucks, and that's the nicest thing I can come up with. They're just flat out stupid.
Some of it's stupidity. I know people though, when it comes to the people on benefits, uh, and if she hears this, she'll be mad at me, but I don't give a fuck. My sister. My
Okay.
sister's a prime example.
What's her name and social
When
security number?
I,
I'm kidding.
well, I don't know her social, but anyway, um, no, she about 12 years ago, 11 years ago, when my niece was born, um, my they both were working, her and her ex-husband now, and they were going to cut down to one income for the 6 weeks that she was on maternity leave. But they looked at their income, and even on what my former brother-in-law was making, they didn't qualify.
Right.
And my sister's to this day is still salty that they couldn't qualify for a little bit of help for the 2 months that she was going to be on maternity leave and not working. And I looked at my sister and I'm like, look, even on his income, you are making better for a family of three than what you would qualify for. What that's telling you is it's not that you don't make enough money, it's that your spending priorities are out of whack. And
Yeah.
I started looking at what they were spending. He was, because he was a big spender. He'd spend hundreds of dollars on tools because he was a mechanic, part-time mechanic, and he had three truck payments, and she had a vehicle, and they were trying to balance all of this, and it's like, and like when they bought their house not long before my niece was born, he went out and bought all new appliances for the house after buying the house and put it on a credit card that they were paying off.
Of
Like
course.
it's not that you needed the help. It's you've stretched yourself to the point where you couldn't have survived. There's a difference, but she doesn't see it that way, still doesn't see it that way.
Well, and
She's
it's
mad that she couldn't have gotten help because she was down to one income and doesn't see the difference between that and somebody who genuinely needs it.
it's ironic that a Republican would whine about government overspending or spending beyond our means. And when you go to the House, they're doing exactly like they're doing exactly that. And they feel entitled. Well, I make the money. Yeah, but you also got to pay for things that may be a surprise or come up, and you've got to be prepared to be able to do that. And then when you overspend and now you expect to be bailed out, how is that any different than somebody else, that needs help that you obviously begrudge?
Well, the way she looked at it, and because um, there was somebody else, I can't remember now who it was, but who wasn't working, who had a child around the same time. And this other person wasn't married or planning to marry the baby's father or anything like that. So single mom, but no income and living with a different guy. So and the other guy was supporting everything. Well, because they weren't married, she could qualify, and the mother wasn't working. This other woman could qualify for food stamps and daycare assistance and all of this to help go look for a job and get daycare and WIC and all that stuff. And my sister's like, well, I'm working and I can't get a little bit of help for the 6 weeks I'm off, but she's not working at all and doesn't, and she gets all this assistance. It's like, yeah, they're making sure that her and the baby can eat
Right.
because she does not have income. She's making $0 a month doing anything. But my
And
sister does not see the difference there.
and I tell you this, when that family gets the money, whether it's justified or not, whether you like their lifestyle or not, I will guarantee you about this mother and this kid, they aren't going to have any fucking truck payments. They're going to be buying the basic food needs to survive. So that's the
And
difference.
barely at that.
Yeah, and barely at that because they don't give you that much. It's amazing how Republicans and Trump-fucks can do things wrong or be entitled to something, and no matter what it is, they find a way to justify it. That's what these people do. They do bad
Mm-hmm.
things and they say it's the greater good and they justify everything. But just because in your mind you justify shit doesn't mean it's right or proper. And they don't grasp that.
No, no, they don't. And another example, I guess, I worked with a guy, we worked in groceries, and he would always complain. He says he's a liberal, that he says he's liberal, more independent, but liberal, but he talks like a Republican.
Right.
And he would complain about people coming in first of the month when as soon as they got their food stamps and spending the entire month worth of food stamp money day one.
Yeah.
Well, I know people who were on that who would do that, yeah, because that was their that was the bulk of their groceries for the month, and they made that stretch the entire time. But with my boss, the way he looked at it is, well, if they come in day one and they're just waiting for that money to roll over, clearly they didn't need it or they're too entitled or something. But from knowing people who were on assistance, there's a lot of times those last couple days you're eating plain pasta, no sauce. You're stretching a box of hamburger helper, 1 pound of hamburger helper or 1 pound of beef and 3 boxes of helper to make a meal.
Right. Well, that's the thing
It's
is
stretching.
they come in the first day, but you don't know how long it's been before they came up short and
They've
had no
restocked
food.
anything.
Yeah, and
Yeah, but
granted, the first reaction would be, let's get as much stuff in here again so we don't continue to starve.
exactly. But my former boss did not view it that way. In too many years of working grocery retail, and he was very jaded to people on assistance and people on the system.
Yeah, yeah, I know the story. Eric, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Our guest today is listener Eric from Iowa. He's on frequently and always has some interesting perceptions, and it's always good to hear from him. One of the things, Eric, that I find the most intriguing, and it may be one of the most devastating things for Donald Trump up until this criminal case, is this issue with the bond. It was $454 million. He couldn't do it, said he couldn't do it. He got it lowered to $175 million. And then he got this huckster that claims to have a bond company put up the $175 million. The only problem is this guy really isn't qualified to provide a bond. He didn't include the financial statement, and everybody's going, oh, whoops, he just forgot it. Why don't you send that to us and we'll be cool? Well, then he did send it to them, and we find out why he didn't send it to them is because once he sent it to them, it would become very clear that he doesn't qualify. If he's posting $175 million, that can't be more than 10% of what the company is worth. And unfortunately, the company's worth $550 million, and that puts 175 at about 30%. So, oops, there's a problem. And then there's all other kinds of problems, whether these people are legitimate in the fucking first place.
Well, yeah, and it calls into question what's going on here. And Donald Trump has, did he got somebody to agree to post it, and he conned one of his Trumplafucks. And I saw this guy was quoted somewhere as saying, "Well, the reason they're having an issue with it was because of the very, very low fee that I'm charging Donald Trump. That's the
Yeah.
problem." No, the problem is your financials don't line up. You're not worth as much. This particular company of yours isn't worth the money that you're trying to say that he's going to put up. And if you listen to his initial press release, oh, it was a good bond. It was easy to do. We came together very quickly, and it sounds more like Donald Trump talking than him.
It does. And what we're finding out very quickly is this whole bond is just nothing more than a scam. It's just
Yeah.
another way to gaslight and hoodwink people and make it look like he has a bond. Because this company, if they put up the bond, there's no way they can afford to pay it. So what would happen is, and this is why Letitia James has to be so careful, because Donald Trump is one of these motherfuckers that say, "Oh yeah, I'll pay you," and then when it comes down to paying, they fuck around and spread it out for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and you never get paid. And that's what the courts have to protect the state of New York from, and Letitia James for that matter. And when this happened, it took, we all heard about the bond and we thought, oh my God, he got it at the last minute. Now, once they got into it and started looking into it, opens a Pandora's box because there's a lot of reasons why this guy can't get the bond. One of them is that he isn't licensed to give bonds in New York. They go, oh, yeah, we know that, but we were just going to, and we're going to, it was all a big scam. That's what it was.
There's a lot of things with it. Like you said, it's a Pandora's box. He's not licensed. Sounds like this was a last minute deal to save face. And like you said, Donald Trump, there's not even a guarantee that Donald Trump paid the bond or the bonding amount initially.
No.
Like he said, the guy said, well, he gave me the 175 in cash. And we questioned, I think in an email, I think I sent you or something, we were talking about it. It was, well, why did he need the bonding company if he was just going to put the cash up? He could have just
Right.
gone to the court and done that.
Why not
Well,
save the fee?
yeah, we got all sorts, and there was all sorts of theories. Did a foreign country do it? Did somebody else actually put the cash up, and he's just putting the bond up in Donald's name? Are they laundering money? And now you come to find out, well, maybe there was nothing actually put up, and this guy just wrote the bond, trying to buy Donald a few more days to figure something out. I
Right.
think that's the case. I think he was just trying to buy Donnie a few more days to come up with a bond from somewhere, sell some property, or who knows what. But I also read that there's another issue with this too, on top of him not being licensed and Donnie might not pay it, is that prior to the either prior to the court's ruling on the 125 or prior to his attorney going to the court asking him to lower the amount, this hanky said, yeah, we were in talks about covering the whole amount.
Right.
Well, based on his financials, we know he couldn't have covered the whole amount anyway. But Donnie's attorneys never went back to the appellate court and said, hey, we did find somebody who's at least talking about maybe getting this bond. He never told the courts that the situation changed.
Well, and
And
the
he could
thing,
be in trouble for that too.
well, yeah, there's all kinds of legal problems in this thing, but it almost sounds like what Donald Trump and this clown tried to do, instead of posting the money for the bond, which is what they're supposed to do, the cash, they're supposed to post the cash for the bond. It's almost as if Donald Trump went to this guy and was like co-signing for a car loan or something like that. Oh yeah, I'll cover it if it goes bad. No, you got to put up the cash. You got to go into your fucking bank account and put up the cash. That's the only way the state of New York is protected in this situation. He had to do it in the 90 million one for Eugene Carroll. But he's just trying every which way to scam this system and try to slip by. And unfortunately, it's too big a deal. He's not slipping by.
Well, yeah, and Letitia James is calling it into question. I heard the 22nd
Mm-hmm.
there's a hearing in front of Arthur Engeron about this bond and the bonding company. And the way I understand it is there could be some criminal charges out of this yet. There could be the bond revocation, and they could look at it and say, no, we don't accept this bond. Your date's passed, and Letitia can start collecting, the minute they walk out of court.
Well, and that's the point. The hearing is the 22nd. I'm going to take a wild guess here because this bonding guy is probably saying to himself, I didn't sign up for this. I don't know if it will help him, but I bet you the bonding guy withdraws it before the 22nd just to try to
I
save himself from something.
I don't think I think at this point I don't think it'll save him
You
because
don't
he
think?
already
Well, I don't
tried to
think.
commit a fraud on the court.
Right,
I
right.
I don't think it'll save him. If anything, I think he might go to Letitia James and say, look, I'll testify on your behalf. Just leave me out of this. This was all his idea. You
Yeah, that's
know,
probably more likely. That's probably more likely. But here's the thing: this guy tried to scam the court, meaning Donald Trump and this Don Henke guy. They tried to scam the court, but what's the end result? Donald Trump was supposed to post a bond in 10 days, or his shit was going on sale. He posted something that resembles a bond before the 10 days was up, so it stopped Letitia James from seizing and selling his shit. But then it wasn't a bond. He never actually posted the bond because the bond wasn't accepted. Yet he went past the 10 days. He's sitting here free and clear, keeping Letitia James off the doorstep because he scammed the court. Now they're going to go into court in the 22nd, and I would not at all be surprised if they said, all right, unless there's some criminal charges in this, which it could be, I'm afraid the judge will say, all right, we'll give you 10 more days, find a bonding company. They've already scraped the bottom of the barrel, and that's not going to work. He's not going to find a bonding company. What they should do is go into court, find out that this is illegitimate, and Letitia James gets to work on the next fucking day. That's the what it should be. Because he's got all this time
I
to
don't.
come up with something else.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they're even going to give him any more time. They might give him a couple of days. I don't even think they'll give him 10, to be honest. I think it's one of those things where now you've pissed off a judge, you've pissed off an appellate court, you know, and now you're committing fraud on the courts and trying to pull a fast one with the court system. They don't cut deals and breaks to people who do stuff like that.
No, that's
So
true.
they might, and they what they might do, maybe in all fairness, is they might say, okay, we're going to go out of here. You haven't, you know, say they walk out of court at 1 p.m. They might say you have till end of business today, or maybe end of business tomorrow to get this fixed, because you've known since you posted it that this was bad and you haven't been looking for something. That's the extent of it, and we're going, or she's going to start claiming stuff, because the minute she's got the green light, she's going.
Yeah, she's going and she's going to start grabbing shit. And again, that'll be yet another thing that takes Donald Trump down. You're taking away his identity. He's not rich. He's getting properties taken away. It's going to destroy him emotionally. But that's what I was saying about the whole $50 million fundraising thing. He tells you he got $50 million. We find out he didn't. People are just taken for credit, taken for granted that because he said it, it's real. But this guy has done nothing in his entire business career, his presidential term, and his post presidential term. He's been nothing but an absolute fraud, lying, bullshit, grifting. Nothing he said has been true. So we shouldn't be surprised that this bond is absolute bullshit, given how hard it was for him to come up with something. My contention is when you've got a narcissist like this, who's finally caught, who's finally in the corner, they will say and do crazy shit and they will take ridiculous risk because that's all they got. And this little scam with this bond was a huge risk, but he had no choice. He had to take this risk. He couldn't get a real bond. He didn't want his shit sold. So he just came up with something, and his mind isn't working quite right because he's terrified.
Oh yeah, he's definitely terrified. This was a last ditch effort by him and a couple of his Trumplefucks to come up with something. I think he really thought that he was going to post this thing. They were going to come back and say, well, it's not quite good enough. But before they realized it wasn't good enough, I think he thought he could come up with something else and fix it. And that never materialized.
Right.
And I think he's literally grasping at straws, and he's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's not working.
Right. But you have to understand this is very confusing for Donald Trump his entire life, from a child to up to 4 years ago. Every time he got into trouble, which was frequently, somebody bailed him out. There was always an out for him. He had special treatment. But when this all started, people say, when's something going to happen to Donald Trump? Nothing's going to happen to Donald Trump. Well, right now, between now and November, a lot of shit is going to happen to Donald Trump. You had to wait for it. You had to be patient. I know it was tough for a lot of folks, but this is when the shit starts falling. And this is when the things start happening and the accountability is meted out.
Oh yeah, and it's the dominoes are falling, and he can't put them back up again.
No.
There's nothing he's going to be able to do. I mean, no, at every stretch where he thinks he's getting ahead, he falls two steps farther behind.
Well, as a narcissist, they're control freaks. They like to control everything. You got a problem over here? Well, I'll just do this, this, and this. and that'll fix it. And a lot of times it does. And then something over here goes on. I'll fix this and this and this. But the problem is it's becoming overwhelming. He's got too many
Mm-hmm.
things coming from too many angles and he can't control it all. And that's when narcissists implode because they know they've lost and they just cannot admit that they're losers.
Oh, exactly. And like I said, he's grasping at straws every which way, and he's trying to put out fires, but he's just causing more and more. And his normal routine of just talking is doing nothing but getting himself deeper and deeper in trouble. Look at what he's done. He's opened himself to a third case with E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, but uh, there's been talk about since his stock is tanking, and he keeps going out on True Social and bragging up his stock and trying to get people to buy the stock and things like that. Well, that's a crime
Yeah, it is.
because you're misrepresenting the financial condition of your business, and he's bragging it up knowing it's failing.
He's pumping the
And
stock.
yeah, and that's another crime. He's he's at the point where nothing he would normally do is working, and the things that he would normally try for problem A that he knows wouldn't work for B, he's now trying for B
Yeah.
because he's got nothing left, and it's just causing more and more problems.
Well, over the next few weeks, he's got some problems. I just want to say too, before the bond was posted, I said, I just don't see a way he posts the bond. I don't think he'll post the bond. So he comes up with this bond. People said, well, you were wrong. I said, yeah, I guess I was wrong, but I wasn't wrong because he didn't post a bond. He hasn't posted a bond yet, and he's not going to post a bond. And it was a nice try, a nice little scam, but it's not going to work. You bring up True Social, and that's starting to pan out to be nothing more than a scam. They have this merger. There's lawsuits by his partners. There are people involved that have been indicted for insider trading. There's all kinds of bad shit going on with this True Social. He puts it out there. It goes up to $70 a share. Everybody's excited. Oh my God, Donald Trump's going to get $5 billion. But then we find out this thing lost $58 million last year, only brought in $4 million. This is one of the most unhealthy companies you could possibly have. And people that are looking at it are suggesting you may have to shut this fucking thing down. This was all smoke and mirrors, all a scam.
Oh yeah, and on top of it, like I said, he's pumping the stock with what he's posted on Truth Social. But I also read something that they're with that statement of financial condition that came out like 3 days after the IPO, where like you said, he lost 58 million last year, only brought in four in revenue. I read some people that know stocks better than me, and they were talking about what is all involved there. That could be more criminal charges for Donald Trump for knowingly bringing an IPO with such an unhealthy company
Right.
to the market. That they
Right.
misrepresented how healthy this company was when they did the IPO, and it was intentional. That again, more criminal charges, but he did it because it was a way to bring him in some money. He thought he could keep the stock going because he's Donald Trump and he thinks everything he touches turns to gold.
Right.
And uh, he thought he was going to be able to ride this thing at least long enough for him to be able to cash out and make some money. And what has it been? 8 days, and it's down uh
Almost
to
40%, I think. 40,
well, it
50%.
closed at $37, 37 and some change today, and
And
continuing to drop. It's been
so
dropping daily since like since that report came out.
So if it started at 70 and yesterday it was 35, it's dropped 50% in just over a week.
Yeah.
That doesn't give you much hope. And you're right, exactly what Donald Trump did. He's trying to pump this Truth Social. And it's one thing if it's privately owned, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can lie. But like you say, they wanted to get the IPO because they thought this was the one way they could save it by pumping up the stock and making a bunch of money and giving the perception that you're successful and all that stuff. But what they forgot to tell us is that the SEC requires them to give financial statements about the company. And then when the financial statement comes out and shows that it's a big loser, naturally the fucking stock's going to drop. I mean, there isn't one person in this whole process that has enough experience in stocks to see that this is what's going to happen. I mean, even I know that, and I don't even have any stocks.
Yeah, I firmly believe that either one of two things is true. Either everybody involved knew it was a bad idea and they did it anyway.
Right.
And they said, well, we know this is illegal, but maybe we can sneak one by them, and they conspired that way. Or the people that sat there and who did know better told Donnie that this isn't going to work. This is a bad idea. Donnie said, "Sit down, shut up. I know better. This is going to work because I'm a genius,"
All
and
right.
they did it anyway.
Well, and that seems to be the problem with lawyers and Congress people and administration officials. They all succumb to the behest of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a brilliant idea. He must be brilliant because he's a billionaire, and really not. But they all fall in line and do whatever he says, even though he continually fails time after time. It's absolutely crazy to me. I mean, this now that you're in this stock thing, you're dealing with the SEC. They don't fuck around with this stuff because the credibility of the stock market is paramount. Something like this getting onto the stock market really causes the stock market to take a hit. And if people don't trust the stock market is fucking done.
Well, yeah, and they're going to go after him for this, and it's just another loser for Donald Trump. It's another failed business, and the only people who ever thought it was a winner are the red hat wearing Trumplafucks. And what does it say about them if there's 30%, if it's 30% of the Republican Party are Trumplafucks, but he only has 500,000 users on Truth Social, and a bunch of them are Democratic or liberal leaning anti-Trump commentators that
Right.
follow him on Truth Social so they can post what he and then they can comment on what he's saying over there.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
truth.
not a winning platform.
No, it's not a winning platform. And I heard Devin Nunes, remember him, the representative from California that was a piece of shit. He sued a cow on
Yeah.
Instagram or Twitter. Um, and and they were talking to him on the air. Well, we're in good shape because we don't have any debt and we're going to turn it around. Well, you haven't done anything. You haven't done anything to turn it around. It's just constant bullshit and lies, trying to just give them a little extra time, hoping that a miracle falls in their lap. But they should know by now that after doing this for 7 years, the miracle never comes because Donald Trump is just a fuck up loser. And he constantly fucking loses. And when you hit your wagon to him, you're going down with him every fucking time.
Oh yeah. They should know better, but for whatever reason, they have bought so far into the Kool-Aid that they I don't know what it is. I don't know if they just don't want to admit being wrong. I don't know if they can't see any other way out but to keep pushing forward and doing what they're doing. I don't get it. I mean, look at Mike Lindell,
Yeah,
that fucking loser. I mean, he gave up a semi-successful multi-million dollar shitty pillow company,
right.
which and I don't remember where I heard this. I saw something about it where they were talking about what actually is in the pillow stuff, and apparently it's scrap material from something else that he just turned around, cut it into pillow shapes, stuffs it in a thing, and calls it a pillow.
No, actually, what it is it's foam like you would have in anything foam, but he chops it up in little chunks. And so it doesn't really disform. I mean, to a certain it's a shitty pillow, but it doesn't really flatten out and stuff like normal pillows because it's all these little chunks. And it was a simple dumb idea, and for what it was, some people liked it. He sold them for a ridiculous amount of money. I don't know if you heard this story. He once again said, "Well, I got the evidence now. I'm going to the Supreme Court, and that's going to change everything." Turns out he says he canceled that Supreme Court hearing because he didn't feel it was safe for whatever reason. I tend to think that the Supreme Court says, Mike, you're pissing us off here. You keep coming to us with bullshit. We're not doing it anymore. And then he made up a story, so he still looks strong. I feel sorry for the people that work for him. I don't know that I know anybody, but his place isn't that far from where I live. And there's a lot of people that put their lives into it, their careers, and maybe we're hoping to retire. And he's fucked it up for him because he is going to go, he's going down, if not down already, selling machinery. He's getting evicted from buildings. I mean, this guy is maybe the only person I've seen that's as dumb as Donald Trump and didn't have the wherewithal that Donald Trump had, whatever limited amount that was.
Yeah, and um, all he's doing is he's screwed over whatever he had. He's
Yeah.
probably going to be facing criminal charges at some point, and he doesn't see it. He is invest. He's so far down that rabbit hole, and I don't understand. Like, if the people were reversed, okay, and it was Joe Biden who did everything that Donald Trump has done, and this is all coming out. I'd be off the Joe Biden bandwagon so fast.
Oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't care. I don't care that he's my guy. I don't care that he's a Democrat. None of that matters to me. Well, the only reason I'm supporting Joe Biden is he's gotten results. He's a decent person, and he's got some decent things I'm backing. That's
Yeah.
it.
But if you were a criminal, I'd be the first one saying, get him the fuck out of here and put anybody else
Right.
in. Put anybody else in.
You know,
Yeah.
if there was any justification to some of the stuff that the Republicans like to throw out there, that they want to make a tie to Joe Biden and being weird with children, when Donald Trump went to Epstein's island and partied with him and got isn't there was some allegations involving a 13-year-old. Those are public about Donald Trump, but they had to make something up about Joe Biden. But if
Yeah.
those allegations were true, I'd be off the Joe Biden bandwagon. I'd be done.
Well,
I'd be moving on to the next person. It,
I've seen the documents of the lawsuit against Donald Trump and his co-defendant Jeffrey Epstein from a woman, and it's regarding the rape of a 13-year-old girl. She's an adult now, but she was suing him. And then all of a sudden it went away and it came back again. I wonder why that happened. You know, people will say, well, it's not credible. Well, why would she come back for a second time if it's not credible? We know what Donald Trump does. He threatens people, he buys people off. Actually, I don't even think he would have bought this woman off. I think he threatened her. And I think we have reason to believe that that is a real problem based on what we're seeing with those women down in Georgia, with the juries, or not the juries, but the judges and such. That's just Donald Trump's game. Threaten people until they fold. And
exactly.
it's not surprising that prior to the presidential election, when Donald Trump was still a billionaire allegedly, and this woman wants to sue him, that Donald Trump didn't have enough power to shut her down or scare the fuck out of her. That's exactly what
Oh,
happened.
exactly. Worst thing he ever could have done was come down that golden escalator and say he was running for president.
Yeah,
He, if he would have just remained a business mogul and stayed, in the limelight with his shitty reality TV program, he would have been untouchable. We probably would never, not the rest of the stuff might have come out, but he could have probably buried a bunch of it.
yeah. He's
The
a
pro-
guy that's made a lot of mistakes, but you're right. His biggest mistake was running for the presidency and then actually wanting to win it. And I don't think he planned on winning it. I don't think he thought he was going to win it. But when it got deep and it looked like a possibility, that's when his ego went fucking wild. And then he started believing he's a genius and a political power. And unfortunately, a lot of dumb motherfuckers uh, agreed with him and believed the bullshit. And that was his biggest mistake. There's no question about it.
oh yeah, as I've said before, he fell ass backwards into the presidency,
Yeah,
and the I firmly believe, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. If the Democrats literally ran anybody else other than Hillary Clinton in 2016, they could have beat Donald Trump. If
yeah.
and if that FBI report hadn't come out 3 weeks before the election in violation of DOJ policy, you know, they could have beat Donald Trump. But the point is, they only beat Donald Trump because Hillary was such an unlikable candidate.
Right, right.
If they had anybody, Joe Biden could have beat him back then. Bernie could have beat him.
Yeah.
A tree stump could have beat him. You could have
Yeah.
had a literal tree stump. I think could have gotten more electoral votes than and beaten Donald Trump.
Well, and this is why I've said before, and I don't know if people agree with me or not. I think that one of the biggest culprits and one of the biggest people responsible for getting Donald Trump elected, left side media, because
Yeah.
he was an absolute joke coming into the election, but he was a shit show and he was good TV, so they kept putting him on their TV channels, and they put him on so much. They didn't push back against him. They didn't question his crazy shit. They kept putting it up, and he gained a certain amount of legitimacy from supposedly reasonable minded folks. If the left side media had treated him like the joke he was, pressed him, called him out, he would have never been president. So you can blame a lot of people, but I think the left side media is just as guilty of it as anybody.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. They gave him airtime and a lot of free airtime
Yeah,
to run his ridiculous stuff, his stuff, because he'd go to his rallies and where yeah, the left side media would cover the insane stuff he's saying, and for whatever reason, it didn't resonate with voters. I think not nearly as much as it does now. I really believe some of the left leaning voters looked at it and said, "Oh, he really can't be that bad. He can't be trying to do all this, and there's no way he could win." So they felt comfortable voting third party, or some of them did switch to vote for Donald Trump because they were mad that Bernie didn't get the nomination or whatever. But the left side media kept pushing him out there and made him into a real candidate. When if they wouldn't have covered his stuff and kept it to right wing media only, it would have been a landslide.
right. Yeah, it would have been. And, there should have been a lesson learned by the Democrats and maybe the Republicans too in the 2016 election. In that election, it was basically illustrated by the voters in this country that they were tired of establishment politics, business as usual, the same bullshit that we've been seeing for decades. And they said, Hillary Clinton is the essence of establishment politics. We need something different. Let's look at Donald Trump. How bad could it fucking be? Well, unfortunately, it was way worse than anybody imagined. But people were sick about before Donald Trump and everybody focused on hating Donald Trump, Congress didn't have a lot of popularity. Democrats and Republicans, they were six of one and half dozen of the others in a different way. Democrats are always better than the Republicans, but the Democrats had their problems too. They should have recognized that, they don't like what's going on. We need to make some changes. And because of that, they decided to go with Donald Trump and take a flyer on him. They fucked up, but that's what they did.
Oh yeah, and now it's going to cost the Republican Party their party. Um,
Absolutely.
I really think this could be the death knell of the Republican Party. We're going to be siding with Donald Trump. Um, and yeah, they like you said, people hated Congress back prior to Donald Trump. It was they really felt it was both sides were bad,
Yeah.
and it really wasn't. Democrats had their issues, but a lot of the problems with things getting stalled in Congress were Republicans.
And it's always been the case. I mean, if you look at all people will say Barack Obama didn't get enough done in his 8 years in office. But the fact of the matter is, it was kind of unprecedented. All through that 8 year term, because we had the audacity of electing a black president, the Republicans did literally nothing but try to block and obstruct everything that Barack Obama did. That's why the ACA, it was amazing that it passed, but not before it was tainted and polluted by the Republicans putting their 2 cents in, trying to sabotage the motherfucker. Uh, Barack Obama had a lot of shit to deal with. He could have gotten a lot more done if it weren't for the obstructionists on the Republican side.
Oh, well, without a doubt. I mean, look at what Mitch McConnell said at the time. He was going to make it his personal goal to make sure Barack Obama was a one-term president. He
Yeah,
failed,
He failed
But he
miserably.
said that. But you mentioned the ACA, and I saw something, and I don't know where I saw this quote. Maybe it was misinterpreted, but I thought I saw something where somebody did a survey, and they asked the same people what they thought of Obamacare versus the Affordable Care Act, and really negative opinion about Obamacare, really favorable opinion about the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
But
Same thing.
same exact thing, but because it's got the Obamacare thing got such a bad rap by Republicans at the time. People still like they love what it's actually doing for them, but they don't realize it's doing it for them. They
Right,
think it's something else. Like they think those two things are completely separate.
right. Well, and the thing about it is that it could have been a lot better. You know, people will say
Oh, it definitely could have.
Obamacare or ACA is not that great. It's got problems. Yes, it does have problems, but the reason it has problems is because the Republicans, in order to get it passed, they put things into it. They had to compromise on this, and the intention was just to sabotage the whole fucking thing because they didn't want to give Democrats or Obama a fucking win. So who pays in the long run? You and I do with our health care. Our health care isn't as good as it should be or as good as Obama wanted to make it because the Republicans once again fucking obstructed and messed with the whole bill. And again, it's us that pays, and it's just a big political game, and people are tired of that shit.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I think within this election, things are going to shift to the Democrats, and I think within the next several election cycles, you're going to start seeing a lot more younger people shifting into politics,
Absolutely.
and that shift is going to. I mean, I think within 10 years we have single payer healthcare like the rest of the first world.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think we have something like England, something like Canada, because I think the younger generations, my generation and younger, have realized this isn't working anymore. The
No.
system that we grew up in, the system that even the way insurance worked in the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't great, but it also wasn't horrible.
No.
You didn't pay that much for your insurance, your deductibles weren't that high. Um, you weren't left bankrupt with a medical bill. Now
Right.
you go to the doctor for almost anything, and you're worried about if you're going to be able to eat for the next 3 weeks after you get that bill.
Well, you go way back, maybe the 60s. I don't even know if they had health insurance. You could
They
afford to
did.
pay. They did have health insurance way back then,
Yeah.
but still, I remember when I was 18 years old and I had to buy health insurance, 1978. It cost me $40 a month. That's what it costs for me. Now, granted, I was an 18-year-old kid. I'm pretty healthy, but while we're talking about that, we can talk about the student loan thing because it's kind of the same thing. Uh, Joe Biden's revisiting that, coming up with another plan and going to be
Hmm.
pushing it up through November. I don't know if he plans to get it done before November. I don't think that will happen because you still have Congress the same way it is. But if Joe Biden's smart, he'll ramp it up, expose it, promote it, and let people know you put us in, this is what's going to happen. And it's a smart move because he wants to relate to the younger folks, and this is direct impact to millennials and Gen Zs.
Yeah, and the thing I saw in this, and it didn't do a good job of explaining whether or not this has to pass Congress or whether this is something Joe Biden can just do
Right,
without Congress. It
right.
implied that he could do it without Congress.
That would be nice.
And but there was like five tiers of people, and I don't remember them all, but one was like if you've been paying on your loans for 20 plus years, like um or 25, depending on whether you have a bachelor or a master's, and you owe more than when you started, they'll be forgiven.
Yeah,
Or no, if you were paying on them that whole time, they'd be forgiven. If you were approved for anything prior and you didn't do the application or whatever, it would just be automatic. Apparently, they have it on computers somewhere, or they have the records of who should have qualified and didn't apply. Those guys would be approved. There was one of if you borrowed money but now owe more than when you started and you're making payments, those would be forgiven. Like there's a list, and it sounds like it'd be a lot of people and a lot of these borrowers would be saved a lot of money.
And I've had this argument with people for years. They'll say like, well, I paid my college loans. They should pay their college loans too. And they don't grasp it's not about giving a free ride to these young kids. First of all, the cost of, I explained to somebody, the cost of college or university has skyrocketed, but the wages have stagnated. So of course, if you were in the 70s, you could pay your student loan because you could afford it. But your salaries have stagnated. This has gotten ridiculous and gotten crazy almost to the point of predatory loans. And there's a difference. But old people like me that aren't smart, all they see it is, well, these guys are going to get a free ride. I've given this explanation before, and I've given it to other people that are Trumplefucks, and they don't know how to answer it. It's not about giving a free ride to these people. It's about a bunch of young people, the future of our country, being saddled and in slavery to these loans. Now, these people will not be able to qualify or afford homes or cars or trips or any of that. What do you suppose that's going to do to the economy? And more importantly, what's it going to do to people my age? What's the one thing
Yeah.
people have for their retirement? The money in their house. They presumably have it paid off. They want to sell it, score big on it so that they can live on it till they die. Well, if nobody can afford homes or qualify for homes, guess what happens to the value of your fucking home? Guess what happens to the value of your fucking retirement? All of a sudden, you're going to get half as much, and the prices aren't going down on everything else. You got to look back past the end of your nose, and so many people just don't have that ability.
Well, and on top of it, like you said, it's predatory lending. You
Yeah,
know, you go in at 18 years old, fresh out of high school, a lot of these kids, barely 18, never signed a contract before, don't know what interest, don't really understand how the interest works and the deferred interest and all of these things. And these loans, literally, there is the way I understand it is as long as you're a student, you're approved for
yeah,
federally backed loans, basically.
right.
You don't have, there's no income requirements, there's nothing. You can go in and just, I'm going to be a student and you get loans. And it's enough to cover your tuition, your books, your meals. Okay, that's great. But they don't realize when they're signing these deals that they got to pay that stuff back down the road, or they do, and they think they're going to make all this money when they get out of college.
And then they don't.
But then they get out of college, and you know, I know people who have college degrees who aren't making 30,000 or barely making $30,000 a year.
Exactly. Exactly. They owe 70 grand and they aren't making 30 grand. So yeah, that's and besides the fact you got 18-year-old kids that don't know fuck all about money or their future. All they know is they're going to be rich and famous and have all the toys. So paying that loan isn't a problem, or it'll never come because it's so far down the road. That is predatory without question. And that stuff needs to be rectified if we hope the economy will continue to grow and be good not only for the young people but for all of us. And people just don't seem to grasp it. They think it's, I paid mine, you got to pay yours. Okay, that's fine. I paid a lot of stuff too, but the fact of the matter is I'm concerned about whether my granddaughter is going to be able to buy a house or my son. I will say this, unless you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, accountant or something like that, don't go to college. It's not worth it.
Well, I mean, it is to some extent, but the thing is, well, the other thing is like what a lot of people forget is they're like, well, what is that? What did that arts degree or whatever? What did an art degree get you? But then they turn around and they want to go watch a movie, a multi-million-dollar blockbuster movie by
Right.
somebody who got a graphic, but it was produced by somebody with a graphic arts degree. But
Right.
they don't want to see the value in that degree. They want to say, well, it's that there's no money in that. But then they want to take advantage of the people that do those type of jobs. You know,
Yeah.
they want to have it both ways.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be when you're deciding to go to college, kids romanticize what they want to do and what's going to be fun and what's going to get them to do what they want to do. What really needs to be done if you're going to go to school, whether it be college, trade school, or get certifications online, you really got to be on the mindset of a businessman or a businesswoman. I'm going to invest this much money. What's my ROI, return on investment, going to be? But 18-year-old kids don't think like that. They think the world is
No.
their oyster and they're going to get rich and famous. And that doesn't happen to 99.9% of them. So we're putting them in a position to make decisions about their future and investment in money, and they're in no position to fucking do it. They don't know
Oh,
what they're
exactly.
doing. So they get
No.
fucked over.
And they even if the ones that are really good at what they do, they come out with a degree, and you know, sure they might be able to make some money, but some of them can't. And
Right.
you know, they end up in a highly competitive field or something, and they can't make any money, but they still have these loans that they're going to be paying on until they're dead.
Right.
What good is it? The only people making money are the banks that lent the loan.
Right. Right. Exactly. Uh, uh, I mean, this is why I think, all that's happened with Donald Trump and the Republicans and all that's been exposed. I always try to look at the bright side. People always say, you make me feel better. But I'm a firm believer that when a lot of bad stuff happens, on the other side, a lot of good stuff happens. And a lot of things have come out and have been exposed that have kind of flown under the wire that we didn't know about or weren't interested enough to find out about. We know about all these problems, whether it be healthcare, whether it be student loans, whether it be the corruption in politics. When we get to this election in November, and presumably the Democrats take control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, the Republicans would be silly to coast. They need to put the pedal to the metal and go hard, because the more things they can accomplish to fix this country and help the people in the middle class will make them stronger going on, and it'll make it that much harder for the Republicans to come back. They're going to have to adjust or acclimate to the new world. And the new world is that the middle class is tired of this bullshit, and we expect something out of politicians, or you're going to be fucking gone. And we've got to set that tone to apply to Democrats or Republicans after the November thing. I feel like this is kind of a paradigm shift where power is going to change. The power with social media, with knowledge, with information is now with us. And if we use it properly, we can change what's going on in DC.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you're going to see some of the biggest social reforms,
Yeah,
and maybe that's not the best way to put it, but some of the best social changes for the middle class, probably going back to FDR and the New Deal.
absolutely. We are already kind of there with what Joe Biden's done. It's close now as
Yeah,
far as what Joe Biden's done.
but I think you're going to see, minimum wage is probably going to go up. You're going to see, I mean, for the most part, don't get me wrong, minimum wage has gone up, because even around here where I'm at, like $14 to $15 almost is the norm. Places that aren't paying that aren't getting employees.
No, but let's acknowledge something. 15 bucks an hour, that's not enough to survive. It's better
No,
than
it's
it has
still
been.
not.
Still not
But
enough.
but for those that are saying, well, minimum wage needs to go up, it basically already had, like, to officially say minimum wage will go up to 15. If they took it to 15 today, a lot of the places around where I'm at wouldn't see a change in what they're paying anybody, because they say, oh, well, you're already making that, and they wouldn't
Right.
adjust.
Right.
But they're already paying it because they're not getting anybody. You can't live on 40 hours a week at 7.25 an hour anymore. Not even as a single person in a shoebox.
No, no, you can't. Well, and uh, that's what's happening to these people that insisted on keeping wages low. They say let the free market control it. Well, the free market's controlling it now because if you're paying under 15 bucks an hour, you can't get anybody to work. And if you can't get anybody to work, you don't have a going concern with your company. So the free market is having an impact, but there needs to be more done because if you're making 15 bucks an hour, you can't buy a house. You can't buy a new car. You can barely afford rent. So there's got to be more done. It's got to progress better. And once we get Republicans out of the way from obstructing this shit, maybe we can get some things done. Because Joe Biden found something out that nobody believed. I don't even think the Democrats believed it. If you build up the middle class, if you help the middle class, it improves the economy. And Joe Biden proved that in his term with the COVID relief thing and some of the other things. You gave them money, and guess what? They didn't waste it. They spent it. And when they spent it, it improved the economy. Now, when you give 2 trillion to the rich people, does that improve the economy? No, it doesn't. But if you give it to the middle class and make them healthy and make them bigger consumers and make them pay more taxes, I don't know. That sounds crazy, but that somehow helps the economy.
Well, I've been saying that for years because I have a lot of friends, some friends, I should say, who will like to argue and complain about like the single parents or even parents with kids that get big tax refunds this time of year. You know, 8, 10, $12,000 per family or whatever the number is. And they're like, well, it's so ridiculous that I'm only getting a few $100 back, but they didn't make nearly what I did, and they get a bunch of my money handed to them. I go, yeah, but then watch how they spend it. I go, it's
Oh,
going to be gone in a month or two. They're going to go out. They're going to buy a bunch of stuff that they haven't that they have been waiting and waiting and waiting to replenish, or to repair, or to fix, or to replace, or whatever. And it's going to be gone, and it's going to drive the economy, which then puts money in your pocket because they're paying your paycheck because they're shopping at your business, and people don't want to see it.
no, they
Some
don't want to
people
say
don't
it.
want to see it.
Well, and the other thing, the argument of, oh, they're getting all my money. Here's the deal the way taxes work. You can't get any more back than you fucking paid in. It's not like you paid in 2 grand and they give you back 8 grand. That's not how it works. They paid that in at
No, it does.
taxes. Huh? I'm sorry?
That does work that way. I've seen tax returns. It can you can get more back than you pay in
How is that possible?
because certain credits are considered refundable credits. Even if you haven't paid the money back in
Wow.
your total, you get some of it back from the government. But they do it because, like I said, the money hits the low income people, and these are for the people on the bottom end of the earning
Right,
spectrum.
right,
And they because the government knows the minute they get the money, it's out the door and spent in the economy, and they're going to get it right back in sales tax, in taxes on the money that the companies they spend it at makes. They do it to drive the economy.
but that doesn't happen to you and me.
No,
I can't
no, you
get
and
any
me,
more. Yeah.
we're talking the people that do it like they're the ones making like 10, $12,000 a
Right.
year.
And I'm
The
okay with
very
that.
low, they're the ones that get back more than they put in. They might get back in a refund more than they make the rest of the year,
Wow. I
but then
did
they
not know
spend it
that.
all year. I
Yeah.
know some people who have, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I did not know that. Because I've never seen that happen with me. I usually pay in, so fuck. What do I know?
yeah.
It's just
But like I
ridiculous.
said, it's on the really low end. And I had some people that worked for me that I was their boss, and they would wait for tax time because they worked 28 hours or less a week, $8 an hour, $9 an hour, whatever it was. But then come tax time, they'd get 7 or 8 thousand
Wow.
back because they had a child, and that was one of the credits that you got the money back. And then that's when they would go out. They might buy a new used car that was
Right.
a model year or two newer and upgrade that way. Or maybe that's when they got the tires for the car, or they got, oh, I need, we haven't bought a couch in 3 or 4 years and it's falling apart. They went out,
Right.
they bought the couch. The money never lasted with them, but they got back more than they paid in. And I know other people who got so mad that they didn't get it back. It's like because you're in a better financial situation. It's
Well,
like
and
what I was saying with my sister earlier. You know,
the thing is when they do get the money, they do the one thing that's best to uh, drive the economy. They put it back into the system because they
Right.
need shit. And those people who are bitching about it are ended up selling them, like you say, couches and cars and things like that. So in fact, they are getting it. They're getting sales that they wouldn't normally get.
But they don't see it that way.
No,
All
I know.
it's a thing of somebody else is being made equal to me, or they're being brought up somewhat equal to me, and now I'm mad about it. It's the same thing that Republicans pull with like Transgender Day of Visibility or Pride Month or what have you. Is somebody else is being spotlighted and being brought equal, or being shown that they're even out there, and that it somehow takes away because I'm no longer special. Well, no, it's not that you're not special. It's that you've buried this other group for so long. It's the same thing. They don't want to see it because they think it cheapens themselves, or it makes them less, or somehow something like that. And I don't understand it.
Well, it's like children, I explained this to my kids one time. Kids, if a parent gives one kid help, say gives them $100, and I know parents that do this. Say one kid's having trouble with something, having trouble paying a bill or in a bad position, and he needs $100. So I give him $100. Okay. In some families, the other kids, maybe three or four or five or 10 other kids, they say, well, you got to give us $100 just to be fair. And I told my kids, that's not how it works, man. If somebody in my family needs help, I help them. If you don't need help, that doesn't mean you get free money because this person needs
Right.
help. Now you want a fucking slush fund. You should be happy that you don't need the 100. But remember, if you do need the 100, I'll be there to give it to you. But so many people say, well, they got that, so I need to get mine. That's not how the world works. You help the people
Yeah.
that need help, and you be
Exactly.
glad for the people who don't need help. Because what happens is
Exactly. And I mean,
because what happens is if I'm the parent and I have one person who needs help, one son or daughter needs help, I give them $100, right? Now, if I have to give the other one $100 for nothing, then I'm being punished for doing nothing but being a nice guy. So this equal thing is
right.
just
And then
ridiculous.
the next time somebody needs help, and the next time somebody needs help, you're out the $100.
Right.
You
I
don't
don't
have
have
the
them.
100 sitting in the bank account to help.
Right. Exactly. It's just silly. It's childish. And when I hear adults say that, I just want to slap them in the fucking mouth because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. And like I said, that's how kind of how my sister thinks, is it should be equal. Well, just because I need it right now, even though I'm still better off financially, I should be able to get. Well, no. If you don't absolutely need it, no, you shouldn't be able to get it. You're not the same. You're still making better money, and it's short term, and they came out of it. They came out of it just fine.
Yeah.
But it's it's a thing where I don't know, that irritates me, this idea that somehow you have to be equal and bring everybody else up. I mean, but then I hear about things like the universal basic income idea, where the idea being you give every citizen just a straight amount every month that should cover their basic essentials,
Right.
would be a good thing. Well, if you do it for everybody, sure, I could maybe see that, because then they say any money you make you could spend on whatever you want. And I know a lot of people who would take full advantage of the extra money and spend it all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm interested to see what's going to happen the next couple of years when we have complete control and Joe Biden doing everything he can to build not just the middle class, but even the lower classes up. As he says a lot, from the bottom up and the middle out.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that makes all the sense in the world. And what we've seen up to this point is it fucking works. And what we've seen with trickle down and giving rich people money, it hasn't worked for 40 years. So it doesn't seem like it's a fucking no brainer here.
No, it is a no-brainer, but it was such a high pumped, high talked about thing back in the 80s with Reagan, that there's a lot of people that still believe it works, even though the evidence is there, is because it was talked about for so long and so loudly that it does work,
Right.
that they still believe it.
Right. Right. Exactly. 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 Well, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Eric, thanks for joining us. It always makes the show so easy when I have a listener, especially a guy like you that has some insight, some knowledge, has got his finger on the pulse of things. Makes me look so much fucking smarter. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for having me. And also to anybody listening, I have joined TikTok. If you are looking for
Ooh,
me, you can find me at Analytical Iowan on TikTok.
analytical Iowan. What made you decide to make that?
I actually found an AI generator. I kind of pumped in a bunch of different things I was looking for, and it came up with analytical something was one of the things that an idea. And I'm like, well, I am analytical. I'm an Iowan, and it kind of came together that way.
What kind of stuff are you doing? Politics?
Oh, a lot of mostly all politics. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. I'll
My
follow.
goal by the end of the year is to have more followers than HVAC Jeff. So my goal is to hit by the end of the year to hit 4,000.
Yeah, you shouldn't have a problem doing that. So the people listening to this podcast who happen to be on TikTok, I just pulled up Analytical Iowan. You're at 77 followers. That'll go up quickly. I'm going to listen to it. Now, under normal circumstances, I would probably just duet you and try to give you more exposure, but they won't let me fucking do that now because I'm in that creative beta fund. Remember that little problem I had
Oh yeah.
where they get me on originality and stuff like that? They fucking did it to me again the other day. I had to go fight to say my shit's original, and if you don't fucking get this stopped, I'm gonna fucking sue you because you're you're helping them infringe on my brand and you're taking money out of my pocket. I have a feeling, I know for a fact I can get somebody to take this on a contingency and we'll get all kinds of money out of TikTok because you're allowing it to happen. You've been told, you've been reported. So I would do a duet with it, but if I do that, then they'll say, "Oh, you're not original," and then they'll fuck me up again.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So what?
I
So
saw
what you
somebody
do?
else was talking about that creator fund,
Duet mine.
and they were saying that now do it yours.
Yeah.
Okay. But somebody else I think it was Mama Jen, the one who has the Church of Fuckery. She was
Yeah.
talking about it, and she said they cut down what like they really decline how much they pay you per view or something after
Oh,
30
they do.
videos a month.
Yeah.
It used
Yeah.
to be 60, now it's 30.
When I first started, it was a buck five. I'm at like 51, 55, something like that. I mean, it's a good chunk of money. I like it. I'm not bitching about it. I'm not getting rich off it. I guarantee I'm not making as much money on my videos as TikTok is making on my videos, but whatever.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah, but I just thought I'd jump in there. I'd make a few a day, and usually after I get off work, after I've been thinking about it most of the day and reading some different headlines, and
Well, I'm gonna
it's kind of
I'm gonna watch it. I'm looking at it now. You got a pretty uniform setting. You got the
yeah. It's literally the same chair I'm sitting in now. I just turned the camera angle so I'm facing this back wall.
yeah, I can tell. I mean, you don't have to have anything special as I'm proof of, I got the same background in most everything unless I'm in my car or,
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm at a casino, sometimes if I'm at a casino with my wife and I'm going, I got to do some, I'll step outside in front of the casino and do a fucking TikTok. It doesn't really matter where you do it, but, no, I'm excited for you. That'll be fun. You'll be surprised how quickly it takes off. And like I
Yeah,
say,
I mean, I'm surprised how fast it's blown up already. I've already had to block some Trumple fucks. Um, they found their way to my comments, and as soon as I see a Trump 2024 or you know, just some of the more tame comments, but I can tell they're Trumple fucks, I'll leave. But if they start getting a little excited, delete the comment, block them, and move on.
definitely block every Trump fuck you can. It'll just get you in trouble. Here's what I would do. I would duet one of my videos and then promote the fact that you're on the Rational Boomer podcast today, Saturday or Tuesday. Say that on the TikTok. That'll help you.
Okay.
Because then people who follow me will say, "What's this about?" and they'll check it out, and that should get you some more followers. I think, but
Maybe.
it could. Well, it could have fucking hurt.
It
Um,
hurt.
yeah, just duet something I said, and doesn't matter what it is, and just say, check me out on the Rational Boomer podcast. Just type that out. Put that in text. Check me out on the Rational
Oh,
Boomer
okay.
podcast. Go to YouTube or whatever. So yeah, do that. That might help. And I'd be curious to see how much it helps.
All right. I think I will.
All right, we're going to wrap things up. Check out um, Eric on TikTok at analytical Iowan, spelled like it's spelled, one word. Analytical Iowan. Check him out on TikTok. You know what he sounds like here on the podcast, so you know he knows his shit. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.